28 seconds.
27.
26.
25 seconds.
24, 23,
22 seconds.
21 seconds.
22 seconds, 19,
18.
17 seconds.
16,
15 seconds.
14,
13 seconds.
12. 11.
10 seconds.
9,
8.
7.
6.
what?
Copy.
5 seconds.
3, 2, 1.
Hello, welcome to Subspace Chatter, the show where we boldly go into discussing Star Trek. Today I'll be interviewing background actress and stand-in Robin Morselli-Reilly, who worked on Star Trek The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise. Welcome.
Hi, how you doing? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Yeah.
So what are your earliest memories of Star Trek?
Well, when I was a child, it was William Shatner's Star Trek. I didn't watch it all the time, but I watched it sometimes. You know, I wasn't like really into Star Trek as much as some people, but I did watch it. I was sort of a late bloomer, a late comer. And a lot of it happened after I got involved in it myself.
Yeah, so I wondered about like how you started getting involved in it yourself.
Well, I was called for a interview. I was with Central Casting. I just come down to LA from Seattle. I had a business with my mom up there, and I decided I was going to come down and for the first time, you know, go spread my wings and try to get into some, you know, the business. So I signed up with Central Casting, and they sent me out on several different jobs. I worked on Clint Eastwood's movie In the Line of Fire. I worked on a couple other things, and then I got called on this audition to show up at Paramount, and I showed up. I didn't even really know what it was. And I went, and they cast me as a Bajoran ops person, and I didn't know what that was. And I didn't even know I was going to be wearing makeup. I had no idea what exactly it was. But when I got there, I realized that it was like a regular job, which for regular meaning, it could be like a couple days a week, or whenever, you know, they had the Bajoran ops or the promenade. Also, I was a civilian or ops in the promenade. So on those days, you know, I would be working in the very beginning, but then it turned into more. It turned into standing in for Nana a couple times, and then standing in for most of the extra actresses along the way, and every so often for Jeffrey Combs and who else? Yeah, like some of the men that were shorter, like 5'7", you know, like right around 5'6", 5'7". I would stand in for them, and then Louise was a little bit taller than me, so I'd wear a little heel, and I was her stand-in too for most of it.
So did you enjoy working more as a background actress or as a stand-in?
Well, I did it both actually at the same time. A lot of times when we were standing in, we were also working in picture, unless we were in like I wouldn't stand in as a Klingon for Louise. If I was working in background as a Bajoran, then I could stand in for Louise because I'd have the nose and stuff. You didn't have to have the nose, but you couldn't do it with the other makeups because the coloring would be really off. Louise and I had the same coloring, and I was almost, I was tall enough to be able to stand in for her. So that became a kind of a regular thing, which was like a real highlight for me on that show.
Is there something you enjoyed most about working on Star Trek? What was your favorite stand-in role and why?
Oh gosh. Well, I always loved standing in for Nana because she's phenomenal. She's fun to watch. She's amazing to watch. She's a great, incredible actress and a really pleasant person to be around, but very serious also about what she does, but friendly and wonderful. So she was always great. I loved standing in for Salome Jens. Mm-hmm. She was really interesting lady, and I stood in for her a lot and was able to be on the set with her and Renee, auberginois, and watching them work together was pretty cool. And then Louise, of course, that was just incredible. She was a great person, funny. Watching her transform herself into this character when she'd come was great, but she was also herself. She was just a real down-to-earth person. And so that was a really good day. We had some really long days, and she had some long days, and we were able to talk a lot and get acquainted too. So that was really fun.
Does the character that she played, when the Dami, like represent something different to you nowadays in that respect?
Well, first of all, I was in awe because I loved her Cuckoo's Nest.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah. I mean, I've always thought she was a great actress, but it was really fun because a lot of the actresses would come on the set, and they have gone through makeup and hair, and she'd come on in these incredible costumes that were like made for her, with these incredible hats that they'd make too, which she loved it, but she thought those hats were a riot. I mean, she always had some kind of funny thing to say about the hats, like one of them she said looked like the opera house in Australia.
Yeah, I remember that.
She was just a really interesting person. She knew so much about the business. She'd been around for so long. And that was really a highlight for me.
Yeah. And
then a lot of just working, in the different sets. I mean, working in the bar when Armin and all the Ferengis would be in there. That was always a big highlight too, because they were so fun. They were so funny. It wasn't always a funny scene, but they were fun to work with because they were so good with each other. It's like they just played off each other. And I just learned a lot on that set. It was way more. It wasn't just like being on a show that you go and work on for a couple of days. It was like you started becoming like a family because the hours were like out of this world.
Yeah.
I read one thing, and I remember it when Louise, we had like a 21-hour day, and she was like, "Whoa, this is like one of the longest days I've ever worked." And she had the costume on, and so you get to know people. It's not like you're chit-chatting through when they're trying to work on set, but you do have some downtime to be able to talk to people too and get to know them. And that was a highlight.
I think extremely, I got the impression that it was really long hours just by looking at the call sheets and stuff like that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. It was, I would show up if I was doing a Bajoran. I have to show up like 3 hours early, and our calls were like at 7 o'clock in the morning. So my call would be 4 or 5 in the morning, and then a couple hours. Well, this is when we got it down, as far as getting the makeup on and the costume and hair and everything. I had really long hair, so they did these. I'll send you some pictures, but they did. It's kind of was almost like a joke, but fun, because they always did these amazing things. Like one day they did like a bird's nest on the top of my head with braids, and we put I think one of the camera guys put fruit in it, so it looked like a fruit bowl. We were just kidding around, but it was elaborate, and they used all these different braids. But I had a lot of hair of my own too, so they like to play with it. And so after hair, which is usually way over an hour, and then makeup's with a couple hours, and then you have to go get your costumes on. And then you show up at 7 a.m. and start your day. And then after 14 hours or so on set, it took another hour when we got it down. It took another hour to get out of makeup, because you have to be really careful so you don't rip your skin. And so they have to take it off really slowly. And get your costumes back in the costume department. And it was like, I was reading something too that Louise said about that. She said it was like old Hollywood, you know, where they used to go to different stages to get different things done, and before they would even film. And she said, in the old days, you know, you'd go to the costume department, you'd go to the makeup department, you go to the hair trailer, and it was, to her, she said she loved the way that it all worked there. It was fun for her to be doing that, you know, and for me too. I mean, it was always, you go see Bob Blackburn, Bob in the costume department, and he was always had something else for you to try on, or he was making, you know, another costume for you, or yeah, it was really special.
Yeah, speaking about the costumes, were like any of them like really heavy or uncomfortable to wear?
For me, the Klingon costume is pretty heavy because it's all like this really heavy rubber, and the belt and everything like that. You don't drink a lot of water in those days because in order to, you know, go to the bathroom or anything, it was like you have to take everything off, you know, so it's like, forget that. Some of the actresses like Louise or Majel, they always had elaborate costumes for Majel, which of course, you know, I understood, but she was a kick too. She was really fun to work with, very friendly and outspoken and strong woman, and really fun character for her too. And then Louise too, some of those costumes were really heavy for her because it's a really heavy material to make those long religious like robes and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my normal costumes weren't that heavy. The ops costume was a jacket that was zipped up the front. It was a corduroy, like it was pretty thick corduroy, and then pants that matched, and then a belt and boots. But that was pretty easy. That was probably one of the most comfortable ones. And then some of my civilian costumes were comfortable too.
So we've had a question as to like, do you have any of the aliens that you played as their favorite among them? I play
I was a Romulan, and I'm sorry, I cannot remember the episode, but I have a picture. I kept a lot of the pictures from when they take the picture at the end of the day of how you look, so they could match you if they had to match the next day. Klingon, trying to think, Bajoran, and then some odd aliens that they created, you know, for me that were different. And some of them were really beastly looking. I mean, I'd look at myself and I thought, is that what I'm going to look like when I'm, you know, 80, you know, with all the crevices and wrinkles and stuff. It was really cool, though. I loved it. And to sit in the makeup chair in Michael Westmore's makeup office, like if you were actually getting your makeup done in his studio, all along the walls, he had every single piece of every alien was pinned up on the wall.
Yeah, that's really interesting you say that. I didn't realize like he had a studio. I thought it would be like a makeup trailer.
There was a makeup trailer, and then there was when they had really huge calls, they would set makeup up in another stage and set up all the makeup counters and lights. You know, they bring in all the portable ones. Yeah. And then on big calls, that's what would have to happen. It was like a assembly line, but that's where you get your makeup done. Mm-hmm. I mostly got my makeup done up in the lab. It was the Star Trek lab where they had created all these things, and then in the trailer usually, yep. Especially after I was there for a little while, because they wanted to get me through, so I'd be on set to stand in or be, you know, able to get on set earlier. Mm-hmm.
Regarding the Ferengi species, what was involved in being a stand-in for a Ferengi? Did you have to get into full makeup for that? And if so, like, how long did it take?
No, I didn't do that. I mean, I was not really doing stunts. Oh. There were other stunt people, like for Moogie.
Yeah.
But I was too tall. Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's because I think on your memory alpha page it says like the student for Jeffrey
Oh
Combs
yes, yeah, I
as
did.
Brunt.
I
So
stood in for him a lot. I stood in for him when he was Wayoon, when he was
okay.
Brunt. You know, anytime he
Yeah.
was there, if I wasn't standing in for one of the ladies, I would stand in for him because we were the same height.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
So
he's lovely.
so when you stood in for him as Brunt, did you have to have like the full makeup?
No,
No.
no,
Oh, right.
mm-mm.
Okay.
No. It was more about the height
Okay.
with him, because the makeup was like kind of a green makeup. They didn't because they didn't. And then if I was working in picture too, I couldn't wear that. So that was more about the height and just the lighting for him. And that's if they didn't have a male to stand in for him that day because everybody else was standing in for other people. They like to use the same stand-ins because on that kind of a set, there's so much going on and there's so much. It's like you have to learn how to hide in crevices to watch scenes. And they like to have people who were familiar with the set to stand in for the most part. Sometimes they would pull some of the regular background in to stand in for some people if they had a huge cast list that day. But usually, I think there were like 7 of us that were, regulars all the time for the main actors.
And
James
also,
Minor for Michael Dorn. At one point, Rachel. Terry had several stand-ins. Rachel Riesdorf was one of them. There was a girl before her, and then Kathy DeBono. I don't know if you're familiar with her. What's her name? She has a Dabo name. I forget it right now, but do you know it?
I'm
Maybe one of the people know. I'm trying to think of, but anyway, she was Terry's stand-in for quite a while too, and they were good friends, or they were friends, and I still see her too. She's still somebody I get together with sometimes. And Randy Flug stood in for Colin Meaney, and David was Nog stand-in and Quark stand-in. Yeah, because he was a little bit shorter. And he was David Levinson. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with that name as well.
Yeah.
Did you work with like Jeffrey Combs or any of the other actors outside of Star Trek?
No.
Oh, okay.
I haven't worked with him, but I've seen him at event. I've seen him at a couple events. Just like it's somehow you run into people all the time. It's like 6 degrees of separation. You meet people who see the people and then you find out who they are. Sometimes they're on your Facebook. Everybody's busy, but you still kind of find out what's going on with people. Like when Aaron passed away, a couple of years ago, I saw a lot of the people that I hadn't seen in a long time. The kid who played the guy who played Jake Sisko, who's a man now. He's like,
Kid Clofton.
Yeah, I'm like, I used to just kid around with him and have a lot of fun with him. But now he came in and he's like this big, handsome young man right now. And it was great to see him. And I don't know why he recognized me because he was a kid, but I guess we worked enough together to where he, recognized me, and that was fun. But at that event, which was a sad event, a lot of people were there, so we got to reconnect. And then I stayed in touch with Nana. I talked to her off and on. Like I'm going to try to call her and have lunch with her soon again before the holidays. She's a beautiful person that I just really think I can't say enough good things about her. Professional, kind, smart, this everything. Avery, John, the guy, his stand-in passed away from a heart attack a few years ago, I believe. But Avery, I loved Avery. He was a very smart man. He had a lot of different, he had a lot of different ideas about stuff, and strong. He was strong-minded, but wonderful actor. I got along with him great, and I enjoyed working with him very much too. And he directed a few of them too, and that was fun, really fun to watch.
Yeah. So was he someone that you kept contact with after the series?
No, he didn't. But it's funny, it's like all these years later, you still have fond memories of people. It's like everybody goes on with their lives. He went back east after the show. I don't know if I did see him in a one-man show here a couple years after that, and he was phenomenal in that. But
in LA,
was it Paul Robeson?
I'm not sure.
Anyway, it was wonderful, but a lot of these people, aside from outside of the show, they went on to their own lives. Some of them did more acting. Some of them, like I think he was teaching at a university on the East Coast, so I haven't seen him, but I still have great memories of him. Kitty and Armin, I have not seen, but I'm on Facebook with Kitty, and she's a really wonderful person, and Armin is too. They're a great couple. So smart and involved and interested in different things, and she survived pancreatic cancer, which is unbelievable because hardly anybody does. And she raises money for PanCan. For cancer, and does a lot of that kind of thing, along with Armin. I think Armin's been in some other little things. I've seen him in different roles on television as a judge and a couple things.
And
so
he's been writing books and stuff as well.
Yeah, he's writing books, and they have a theater company, and so they've been busy doing their own thing. I was raising my son, which we kind of get focused on trying to raise your kids and stuff. And now most of us, all of our kids are gone, and they're all raised. But I'm connecting more now with people. I think Camille Calvé, who was Nana's makeup artist. She has a company, Scylla Skin, where she does. It's a woman's company where they do are you familiar with it?
No.
Oh, it's like little things that, like for your face and wrinkles and stuff like that she got from when she was a makeup artist. She developed a silicone makeup. Yeah, it's really cool. And I work with her once in a while. We do, I help her with her business a little bit. She's really interesting. She has great stories too, from the, trailer, and she knew everybody pretty well. And then she has twins that she's raising, and they're in high school, so that takes a lot of time for her, and I my heart goes out to her because I understand the high school, thing. And all their activities and everything like that. So
yeah. So like when I started the show, like I said, as I mentioned, like you worked on not only DS9 but like the Next Generation, Voyager, Enterprise.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite among those, and like how did they differ, do you think?
Well, DS9 is my heart. I feel like that show is so special, and I think a lot of people didn't realize how special it was until later. I think I said on one of my other interviews, something that really hit me was during the shutdown, the pandemic shutdown, of the world. So many of my friends and people that I knew were watching the series for the first time with their kids.
Well, yeah.
And they'd say, "Oh my gosh, I watched that whole series with my kids. I love it." I think it's because it hits a lot of notes as to what's going on in the world now. And it's a special show, you know. Just the things that they dealt with and they talked about and they wrote about were kind of now, you know. And it was like before its time. I don't think they were prepared for it at that time, but now people are going, I love that show. So I'm really proud of all the actors and the writers and everything, because we thought it was really special and it was really emotional, and, you know, really emotional filming some of it, because some of the subject matter was difficult, but at the time, and a little bit probably people thought it was a little bit out there, you know, but it really wasn't. It was dealing with all kinds of different things: marriage and children and acceptance and difficulties and veterans and war and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I think that now that's kind of hitting home for people, and it's hopeful, but it was also, I think, pretty real. Enterprise was fun only because I worked on it a couple times, background, and stood in on that show too. But my husband was on that show. He ended up doing camera on that show, and then I had my son, who at the end of my show, he was just born in '97, and when I went back to work, he was a baby, so my mom had come down to help me take care of him because my hours were so long on Star Trek. So I finished the series, but I wanted to spend more time with him. I didn't want him to be raised by somebody else, so I decided to take the time to do that. My husband, who had just gotten this other show, he had a steady job, because this business is crazy. It's like a roller coaster, you know. You're working, you're not working, you know. But he was working with Marvin Rush, who was the original. He was on Deep Space Nine.
Yeah,
originally, and then moved over. And then Jonathan West came to Deep Space Nine with his crew. So Mark was working with Marvin Rush over on Enterprise, and so I worked a couple days there, here and there, but I couldn't take on the full-time thing. Otherwise I would have missed, you know, everything with my boy. So that's when I got into the theater stuff and raising money for theater. And also just my original education was in sociology and pre-law.
Oh, right.
And I was really always interested in children and mental health, and trying to keep them interested in school, have a love of learning and acceptance. So to me, working with the theater kids, a lot of the theater kids, they're kids that don't fit in maybe somewhere else, you know, or they feel a little awkward, or maybe they're gay and they're not talking about it. I mean, there's so many things that are happening and when they come into the theater community, everybody's kind of accepted, and they find a place for themselves, and then they can grow and learn and develop into whoever they're going to be, but in a safe environment and healthy environment. So I wanted to be part of that too. I thought that was important, which I still do.
Sounds excellent.
Yeah. I still support one of the directors that my son used to work with at the end of high school. I still go to all of his productions because I want to support the kids, you know, not just my own, but I think that right now people need music, they need art, they need movies, they need Star Trek, they need, you know, things to be hopeful for, and be kind to each other and accepting, you know. So I kind of wanted to just keep doing that because for me, it keeps me in good mental health to be involved in that. And I want to feel like I'm doing something worthwhile.
Like I remember like some people like talking about, I guess, the same sort of subject that you were speaking about, like the relevance of particular series like during the pandemic, but they were talking about Voyager with, you know, like the theme of isolation, like during the pandemic and stuff like that seemed quite you know, relevant to modern times. So do you have any memories of working on Voyager and or the Next Generation?
I remember working on Voyager, and just I wasn't, you know, in the group of Voyager cast and crew really, but I remember working with the actors on that show. Jonathan Frakes was he on Voyager? I'm trying to think. Oh, well, first of all, on Enterprise, Scott Bakula was the best. He was awesome too. He was a great person. He was kind to everybody. He was wonderful. We loved that experience because of the way that he set the tone on the set. Voyager was interesting too, and it was just a different thing. I worked on one show. It was the Next Generation.
Yeah.
I think The Rock was on there.
Oh, yeah. Well,
do you remember that?
That's the Voyager episode.
Yeah.
Some could say it's difficult to say. But,
I mean, I barely knew who he was, but that was one of his initial early things that he did.
Yeah,
so I worked on that show.
Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. And but I didn't get a real sense. I mean, I think it wasn't quite as I wasn't connected to that as much as I was with the people that I worked with on Star Trek, on Deep Space Nine. But I could see it was great to see a woman, you know, captain, and she was strong and great, and I liked her. She was friendly.
Like Kate Mulgrew was friendly.
Yeah, I mean, she was nice. I mean, to me, I never had. I don't like to say anything real negative about people because I don't think it's necessary. But I think she was always, you know, hi, hello, how you doing, you know,
like welcoming.
Yeah, she was fine, and she was very professional when I was there, which was not many times. I didn't work with her every day. Yeah, and then some of them have gone on to some of the new shows now too, and working on those. I know Jonathan Frakes has been directing on Picard, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's
Discovery.
And Discovery, yeah. Yeah. A lot of people are doing just different things. They're directing. Nana, I think, is writing a book right now too.
Oh, right.
Yeah, on the women of Star Trek, or you know, the women.
Yeah, I remember now that you mentioned it.
Yeah, which I think will be if she finishes. I haven't talked to her soon, but I hope she finishes that because I think that'll be a great book to read. A lot of strong women that have worked on Star Trek, you know, between the actresses, the stand-ins, background, and makeup, hair. I mean, a lot of women really held that thing together too, and stuck with it. And I think it was a real positive. Nana set a great tone for women on that show too.
Yeah,
I think very important.
I thought it was nice what you were saying about Scott Bakula. Where a viewer said, "I love that Scott Bakula is as cool as he seemed." And
yeah, he was amazing. Every year he would throw a huge Christmas party for his whole entire crew, and it was beautiful. And you brought and it was one of them that you could bring your children. And they had all these games and all these, like, you know, face painting and Christmas stuff and holiday things to do for them, and great food and dancing. And he was just so generous when we were on there. It was probably one of the few shows that my husband really loved working on too, because it was a great set to be on. And he was great. He set a great tone for the set. And it was challenging too. I mean, the shots and I got long days and stuff, but it was a place he liked being. And that makes me happy when he is happy going and spending that many hours somewhere working, and he comes home and he has nothing to say, about bad except for good. So, and we still talk about him and how great he was to. There's something about actors when they're respectful and great to the crews and the people they work with that impresses me. If I hear that an actor is disrespectful or thinking people are so below them that they can't even, say hello when they're not working, of course. I don't know. There's something about that, I think it's really nice to know that the people that are doing that are decent. And on our set, Sadig, Colum, Avery, Nana. I mean, I'm not leaving anybody out on purpose, but they all worked together. It was positive. Were there a lot of hours in a day. So, if you had somebody that was cranky all the time, the only person who would get cranky a little bit was Renee sometimes because of his makeup. He'd pull it off, but he was still. I love Renee. He was an incredible actor, and he was really a nice guy. Michael Dorn would complain a little bit about the makeup, but he was so funny to be around. He always brought this kind of fun attitude to the set. But I don't know all the background of what it's like with the producers and who gets along with who there. But for us, they all came to the set, and it was great.
So that's really cool. Before we went live, I remember you were talking about how you help actors go through the lines and stuff like that. What would happen with that? Would you read the stage directions and the script, or would you just read the dialogue? Or
I mean,
how would that work?
With our show, with the makeup and the time that it took to put makeup on and take it off and all that, if the person is doing a scene and it's a over the shoulder, 2-person scene, they would let one of the actors go because they've already worked 12 hours and they have to be back. They have to give them a turnaround time to come back in the morning. So if we were there standing in, a lot of time, if it was one of the people that they knew could do it, actually have the dialogue with them because you're familiar with it. You've been hearing it for, hours on end anyway. They just give you the sides and then you do the scene with them behind, on the side of the camera and you were their sight line. So that we were able to do that. I was able to do that with Renee and almost all of them, but Nana and Rosalind Chow and it was just you're more involved in the situation rather than just standing in. The standing in was incredible because you really got to know how to be in front of a camera. When I stood in for Louise, she was really receptive to. Some actors don't really want you to interact with them, but I didn't experience that on the set on Star Trek. But I've done other things where they've been told, you don't really interact or talk to the actor, you just stand there. Well, Louise, when they change things, sometimes when the stand-ins come in, they have to move some marks or they have to move a movement that they did in the rehearsal or just little things that make, they're in the light and they look, professional and stuff like that. And they look like they know what they're doing, which they do. But if it's changed and they come back and it's changed and they don't know it, then they're going to the wrong place. So she was really receptive. That's why we worked so well together, because I would tell her if something changed and where something was, and she'd come in and it was something she didn't have to worry about. She'd get her line. She had to really adapt to the lingo, the words, and the way that it's not like learning regular lines. You're learning it's like a Klingon, for instance. Mm-hmm. They have a whole different language, Mm-hmm. So you can remember lines, but you're learning Klingon lines that are not like real lines. So it's a different kind of learning than regular lines, and you have to make it real. So
that's interesting.
Louise had to adjust to that.
I've heard some actors that had to do Klingon and stuff like that, like say that they would just like to memorize the sounds that break it up into sounds and not
Right.
like think about what it actually means, but yeah, just memorize the sounds.
Right. My last year that I worked there, I was given the opportunity to do voiceover in the background, voiceovers for the last season on all the shows. And so when I went into the studio to go do the loop with the loop group, I literally, and I still have it, it's a dictionary of all Klingon, everything's Klingon. And you had to actually have dialogue like a Klingon while the people were doing their scene. And so, and that was the background voiceover stuff. That wasn't the actors' voiceovers, but it was all the background that was walking through the promenade, or if they were in another scene and there were Klingons in the room, like 5 or 6 of them, they have a little bit of chit chat going on, and you're doing that. So you
like
had to, you actually you had to do like a line, talk to each other in Klingon. So that was interesting too, to be in the loop group to be able to do that. And then I did some of the computer stuff, the computer voices and things like that last year. That was awesome. Yeah, it was really fun. I enjoyed that very much.
When you say like computer voices, like
well,
ships just revisiting for
they'll say so and so that come down to the come down to the promenade, or they make it.
Oh,
it was it was like the computer voice that would make an announcement for that they wanted somebody to be somewhere or do something, or we're being attacked, or whatever it is that they have.
That's really interesting, because I thought that was Judy Durand. I think there was the person's name that usually did the DS9 computer voice.
She probably did, but the year that I did it, there were a couple times when I got to do it, and I was really thrilled that I got the opportunity. What you do is you may have several people do it, and then the producers would pick the one that they liked. You did it several different ways, and then they made the final decisions about who that was going to be. She probably did them all those years, and I think when I did it the last year, there were a couple that they liked that I did, so I was really happy about that. That was kind of fun. It's just learning something new, being in the studio, learning how to do a loop group, walking. You walk in a circle around the microphone's here. And the circle of people walk around the front of it so that you're close, and then you go away, and you can hear the voices in all different kinds of levels, but you hear the background words. And so we did a lot of that. Yeah, like if you're in a promenade, they're talking about, well, we're going to go over to Cork, so we're gonna have a I got to go get some money or latinum for this or that, and when you're walking through the promenade, it was the same thing. The loop group did a loop, and you're talking all about everything that's going on the station that day, and just it's like a conversation, but you loop around and hear parts of different things. Yeah.
So I wondered if I could ask you like one more question, which basically is like what do you feel like Star Trek has meant to you?
Well, for me, it was a job for 7 years, which was like unheard of in this business unless you're a lead actor, or something. It enabled me to do what I love, be in a situation or a place that I loved being, and still be able to live. And I was also caring for my mom at the same time financially, so I could pay for things for her to help her, because she was very ill with lung cancer and emphysema. So I had to really take care. I was paying for her living expenses and stuff like that, and then I could live my own life too, and afford my life. And that gave me a lot of peace of mind. I was in Screen Actors Guild I got my Screen Actors Guild card, which means a lot to me to be in the union, because I think that they protect the actors, and as much as possible. And I'm proud to have be in there for 30 something years. The other thing is that I didn't realize it at the time until really probably the last few years of how important it is to people, Star Trek. I think that people, it's a way to get out of what's going on and throw yourself into a world that is interesting. You're using your brain. You're trying to assess, like everybody will watch a scene, for instance, and you may hear 5 different takes on it, right? Somebody likes something that somebody doesn't. But I think that's interesting because it's conversation about, like when they talk about Louise's character, Kai Wynn, how she was evil, this and that. She may have been, but she didn't think she was. She thought she was doing the right thing, and that's how she took it. When she was, how she had that voice and she'd say child, and it's kind of like a little passive aggressive, but she honestly thought she was a good person.
Yeah. So it's a bit like Mark Alimo, who played the cat as well. Like
Exactly. Mark, yeah. And Mark is a lot like, he's not like Ducat completely, but he's got a lot of that edgy part of him anyway in his personality. But yeah, some people, liked Cisco, and some people, they didn't like. It's like, but it's a conversation, not an argument, but everybody has a different take, and then you watch it again and you see different things in it.
Yeah.
Like, I think when Aaron passed away, a lot of people were talking about, the challenges of what he went through in the scenes when he lost his leg. And but he really related with dealing with that kind of pain, in his own life, because he'd had so many challenges health-wise. And forging through it and getting on the set, no matter how you felt, and working and loving what he did so much. And then seeing it come through his character, and him caring so much about his character, and then watching them develop these crazy characters that you would not think could be developed into anything. Like Quark, you look at Quark and go, oh. But as he worked through all those years, there was something about Quark, people just, you could see the different levels and dimensions of Quark, not just the guy with the big head and ears. You almost look past that, I think, sometimes, right? Yeah. So that's what I loved about being there. And I think right now I realize more than ever, I realize that it helps people get through their days sometimes. It gives them some joy. It gives them something to talk about, interesting, that is multidimensional. And I appreciate that more than I did then, because I didn't know how much Star Trek affects people until it was almost all over. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I've been feeling and thinking, like, I totally relate to that in like this discussion, because I find you like really interesting and multidimensional. The discussion has been. So yeah, thank you very, very much for coming on the show.
Yeah, and it's just my perspective from being a person that was not a main person on that set. I didn't have a name of anything, but I felt very much a part of it, and more even so now, because I know that, I get surprised that people care or noticed me or care about anything about what, my experience was. But I think it's an interesting experience because it's not the one-on-one actor experience. It's the personal experiences I had with a lot of the people, and it means a lot to me today. It's the older I get too, I realize how strong and how powerful that was in my life. It's something that will never go away. It's something that I didn't realize I would still be talking about 25, 30 years later. So I think that's the powerful part of it, that it has affected my life. And I have my son there, met my husband there, have a lot of friends still from there. And And I think it's going to go forward. I mean, one of these days, I hope that I can go to one of the conventions and meet some of the fans, because I think that they're interested and they can relate with a regular person doing this, being involved in it too, not just a movie star. And that I think is really cool too.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate it.
I definitely appreciate speaking with you today. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for wanting to do it, and I'm glad we could connect.
Likewise.
And if I can I'll send you some photos in the next couple days, just for your collection or whatever, because I think I have some things that you might like to see.
Cool. I'll make sure they're, if you're all right with it, I'll make sure it's visible to the viewers as well.
I'm an open book. I mean, I have nothing, I'm happy to help people see more of it and understand all the parts of it, because there's so many parts. There's so many working parts had to come together to make that show and that series.
Mm-hmm.
The writers and just everybody, So
thank you, Robin.
You're welcome.
We hope you, our viewers, have enjoyed this interview too. Let us know in the comments section what character you'd like to stand in for. Please remember to like and subscribe to this video, and we'll see you next time on Subspace Chatter. Track you later.